Hello and welcome back to RamsTalkPodcast. And it's a bit weird for me. I haven't been here for a few weeks, so this feels a little bit strange at the minute. But we're here after Derby's 1-0 defeat away at Sheffield United. Is it really a surprise? Probably not. Relegated team versus promoted team. But there's a lot to talk about. There's a lot of things that happen, both positive and negative for Derby, and I'm sure there's a lot of lessons that Paul Warne will learn from that. So, joining me today to talk through it, we actually have all three of us went to an away game, which is bizarre. This doesn't happen. But first, we've got Callum Boocock. How are you, Cal?
All good, all good. Shame about the result, but a good away day, good day out with Vic. Seeing you there, Jake. It's like I said, it was a Rams talk first, really. If you think about the amount of people that went to, we just need Jamie to get to one. It'd be monumental.
Let's not joke about things like that. We've also got Vik Singh. How are you, Vic?
Yeah, not too bad, thanks. Digested the performance. It's not all doom and gloom, is it? So I look forward to talking about yesterday's performance. But it was nice to see you guys yesterday as well.
Yeah, it certainly was good to see you. You were also raging post game, which I don't see very often, which is quite funny. I'm sure we've all calmed down a little bit now. But let's kick off talking about probably one of the biggest talking points of the week was who was going to replace David Ozo in Derby's midfield. Now, we saw a change last week where Ben Osborne came into the team, Ibu Adams dropped deeper, and Osborne and Haldmine sort of sat in front of them. I think this week we played a little bit differently. Osborne was that holding midfielder, and Haldmine and Adams played a bit further forward. And Cal, to be honest, we actually played pretty well in the first half, and I know we'll get onto that, but I thought we played pretty decently in the first half. And I think a big part of that was that midfield three and how we shaped up. You know, the midfield three allowed Adams to bomb on and press people. It allowed Haldmine to press people. And Osborne just kind of swept up behind them. And I lost count of the amount of times that he'd win the ball back after someone made a heavy touch or something like that. It seemed to work, didn't it? And it gives us a little bit of encouragement with Ozo missing for quite some time.
Yeah, it was the big question mark going into the game. We were talking about it on the way up, me and Vic, saying that at the end of the day, whichever way we go, whether it's a 3, whether it's a 4, that midfield 3 or 2 is going to be vital because their midfield are very, very good. And I think the question mark was over whether Ibu would be the one who would be sitting in place of Ozo. I thought he did really, really good in pockets. I thought you're never going to question his tenacity, his ability to win the ball back in transition. It's just whether he can not dictate the midfield, but just do that Ozo role, just kind of get that ball from the defence and play it forward, or find Osborne or Haldmine and just see if we can get ourselves moving forward. And that's probably the only thing that is probably still a question mark, in my opinion. I think, yes, we were good in winning the ball back and good in pockets, but I thought we didn't really have much control. And whether that's basically because of the Sheffield United midfield being as good as they are, or missing that real physical presence of Ozo and his ability to get the ball and pick out that pass, or pick out at least that forward thinking pass, and comfortably using his ability to body players and stuff like that. So no, I thought it was okay. I thought, like you said, it was the question mark going into it. It kind of answers it. We're just probably going to see how it develops over the next few games, especially at home.
Yeah, I think we will. And I think the home games are going to be the real test. We've said this all season. It'll be a real test of how good we actually are. Because when we come up against the better teams at home, there will be a bit more of an impetus for us to go forward and win the game. I think yesterday was about try and get a point, and it kind of felt like that, didn't it, Vic? You know, like we said already, we set up with a pretty, positive formation. I'd say a positive lineup, but the first half we kind of matched them, but it felt like we used up all of our energy in that first half, and we came out in the second half and we tried to do what Arsenal tried to do to Man City today and just hold them off, hold them at arm's length, and stop them from scoring. And I think, to be honest, that was probably to our detriment, wasn't it? Because we didn't look the same team. I mean, it was funny because at half time we're like, oh, we can see us attack our end now. And we entered their half about 3 times all half, which, wasn't great for you. And so, Vic, I guess to ask you, what did you make of Derby's tactical performance between the first half and the second?
Well, that's why that'll answer the question of why I was raging at full time. Was just purely because we went from being in the game in the first half to the second half not laying a glove on Sheffield United, which in my opinion, I think we shouldn't have done, because I think the game was sort of there. It wasn't the best from either side. I thought both sides were probably sitting in first gear. Neither side really took control. Obviously, Sheffield United do have the better quality compared to us, but we were still in the game very much at half time. And then to come out like that and not push as much as we should have, I think that was to our detriment. And I think if again, on another day, the set piece could have been ours. We could have got the 1-0 win and we'd all be saying happy days. But in my opinion, I just think if we could be a bit more adventurous away from home, if we could just really be a bit more brave, I think we've shown that we can compete at this level. And I think the most frustrating part of it is the fact that because we stepped off second half, we gave them too much respect. Okay, yes, they're a team that's been relegated from the Premier League. They've got quality players, but we've shown that we can compete at this level. So I don't see why we have to give them that respect. I think away from home, the longer the losses keep continuing, it can become a bit of a habit. So I think if we can maybe sort of turn it by just being a bit more brave, it might be better. But you can't take anything away from that free kick. It was a quality free kick, and yeah, in the end, I think on the balance of play, I think they probably deserved the 3 points.
Yeah, they probably did. I mean, I don't think many Derby fans would argue that. Clearly a better side than us. I mean, we can't use the finance argument every time, can we? Because we'd lose every game if we followed that. But the guy that scored cost them around £15 million, Gustavo Harmer. I mean, that's like 4 times more than our whole team. But at the end of the day, you know, we're playing against teams in this division that will have spent that money, and we can never use that as an excuse, really. But before we get on to the actual free kick itself and how we got there, we've got a comment from Steve-O, who's a Blades fan, saying respect to the Derby fans who are clapping for one of the former players. Yeah, that was in memory of Maddie Cusack. Obviously, people who are sort of big into Derby and spend a lot of time on the likes of Twitter will know Rich Cusack, who's her brother, who's always been a big part of Derby, and she was a massive Derby fan as well. Derby born and bred, we've got a comment saying. So yeah, it was lovely to see both sets of fans have that round of applause for Maddie, and yeah, it was quite a lovely moment, wasn't it? But let's speak about less lovely moments. Curtis Nelson, what on earth was he doing? I don't know why he did what he did. But for some reason, we talked about the midfield already, and something the Sheffield United midfield did really well was they shut down the likes of Halvmine, the likes of Adams. They made it so they couldn't get a touch of the ball. And what that meant was they were opening up the space for the 2 centre-backs, Cashin and Nelson, and both of them got caught throughout the game where Sheffield United had let them carry that ball forwards and then closed them down once they got to the halfway line. And that's what happened for the goal. Nelson massively overcommits. We try and overplay it. He loses the ball, tries to kill someone as they run away with the ball as well. Ends up, you know, the foul. I've sort of watched it a few times. I don't know how much contact there was, but if you dive in like that, you're sort of asking for it, aren't you? The free kick gets set up, and Derby have a 4-man wall with, for some reason, Ben Osborne in that wall. It was about 3 feet tall. And we've got Mendes Lang is also in that wall. Now, just before the free kick's about to be taken, one of the Sheffield United players makes a run out wide, and Mendes Lang is told, get out there and follow him. And he steps out of that wall. And then all of a sudden, there's a huge gap. And that huge gap is where Gustavo Harmer puts the ball right in the top corner, in off the post. I mean, Callum, strikes like that you can't save, can you? I mean, Zetterstrom had no chance getting to that. It was practically unsavable in the top corner. But when you look at it, grand scheme of things, it was so preventable for Derby, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you've just described the sequence of events, every single one preventable. It was kind of the tale of their opening chances were from opportunities that we gave them, whether that was from Cashin or Nelson trying to run out from the back and trying to do a Richard Keogh-esque run and losing possession. Just got flashbacks I was saying to Vic on the way back. But yeah, it's in terms of the free kick itself, it was funny because obviously Warren referenced it. He would have gone for a 4 over a 3, and obviously the personnel in the wall were probably questionable themselves. But the fact that we did set it with a 4, and then because of Sheffield's play, obviously it turned into a 3, and the one on the outside was then Ben Osborne, who it isn't probably the best to get to a ball that's been put in the postage stamp top right hand corner. There's nothing that Zetterstrom could do once the ball's been hit, but there's sequences, as you've mentioned in describing the goal, that could have been prevented, and maybe the wall is one of them. But at the end of the day, you can't take any away from the strike. He's put it literally in the one place that 6'5" goalkeeper can't get to it. So at the end of the day, you just got to give it to him. But I think it's something to monitor over maybe the next game or two, is Catching and Nelson, how much they use the ball from the back, but it's mainly decisiveness. Basically, if they can't see a ball, because what they did was cut out that crossfield ball from Cashin and put it all on Nelson, and then, as you mentioned, Nelson then makes those mistakes.
Well, that's it, and that's one of the things where in League One we'd have got away with that. No League One players wrapping that top corner from there, no chance. Especially not a right footer from there. I mean, that for people that have never taken a free. I mean, I'm not saying I'm a free kick man, am I? But if you've ever taken a free kick from that side with that foot, similarly left side with left foot, it's so hard to wrap your foot around it and get it in the right place, get it over and round the wall. I mean, it helped the wall was 3 feet tall, but to actually get it in that position and put it there is an incredible sort of bit of technique. So yeah, it's not something we'd have seen last year, and I think they're the mistakes that will get punished, won't they, for Derby this year, whereas last season we'd probably have got away with it. They'd have put it in the stand somewhere, but there aren't many 15 million players. Well, there's one 15 million player, isn't there, in League One, but we won't talk about that one. But I mean, Vic, Cal's said already, we need to look out, especially at centre half. And I think a big part of Derby's transfers this summer was getting another centre half in that's got that experience at a higher level. And as good as Curtis Nelson's been, and I know people will get very upset with me immediately saying this after he's made basically one mistake, but a big part of why we've brought Nat Phillips in is clearly because there are teams in this league that do have players that are Premier League standard. We need Premier League standard defenders to defend against those sorts of players. And Nat Phillips is that sort of player. We saw moments after he came on where he'd pick up the ball in really difficult spaces. And I think Nelson probably would have, he showed that he struggled to give the ball away 4 or 5 times, especially running towards his own goal. Nat Phillips came in and was a little bit more calm in possession. He was a lot, maybe more wary. He kind of knew a lot more about what he was meant to do. Can you see that being a change? Maybe not this week, but in future weeks where maybe Nat Phillips has slowly phased into this Derby team, maybe taking Curtis Nelson out?
Potentially. It just depends on how Nat Phillips is performing in training and what Nelson's sort of state of mind is. It just really depends on a number of factors. Nelson did struggle yesterday, but I didn't realise how big Kiefer Moore actually was until I seen him in person. It's massive. But literally Nelson did struggle yesterday. The only thing I could see maybe happening in the future is maybe moving to a back three. I think all 3 of them might end up playing at some point. Like you said, Phillips come on, he looked quite composed, he looked quite relaxed and normal. Looked like he'd been playing for a while. He's played in the Championship before. He's played with Cardiff City last season, so we know we can play at this level. There's a potential for us to make that change. However, I think he'll stick to him and keep Nelson in there. But in my opinion, I reckon we'll see a back 3 quite soon, just purely because, especially away from home, I just think a back 3 might solidify us a bit more, especially if we're trying to grind out points away from home. But I wouldn't be surprised to see Nelson dropped and Phillips in, because for one, he's come from Liverpool. He's going to expect game time, and he's from what's been reported, he's on a big wage, and we're probably paying a fair chunk of it as well. And we're not going to leave him on the bench for that sake. So I reckon he'll come into the side, but it's Nelson's at the minute. So hopefully he can improve on his performance. But if not, we know we've got a Premier League ready defender in the waiting.
Yeah, and that is one of the reassurances we can take, can't we? He's not bedded into the team yet. I'm sure he will be at some point. Cal, we have to bring up Derby's goalkeeper again because that's a weekly segment. We saw a lot of positive comments from the Sheffield United fans about Zetterstrom. I think the save that he made right in front of us about 2 minutes in, Derby had that great start, didn't they, where almost scored. Jackson's ball cut out after about 5 seconds, but about 2 minutes later, there was another real chance. I think it was Nelson, ironically, that sort of scuffed his clearance, fell to the striker about 4 yards from goal. He blasts it, and Zetterstrom manages to get a shoulder up to deflect it over the bar. And he made a couple of good saves later on as well. I know he obviously gave the ball away for one of them, but he looks like a goalkeeper that's going to win us points this year. I mean, obviously the wall brings its own questions, but if not for that free kick, he'd have had another clean sheet, and it wouldn't have been, it would have been very deserved, because once again he's put in another performance where he's probably saved 2 or 3 certain goals where, maybe if we didn't have him in goal, we probably would have conceded and we would have been out of the game much, much earlier. I mean, we keep asking the same question, how important he is, but how important is he, Cal?
no, very, very is going to be key. That's what the investment was for. That's what the wait was for when we were waiting for the transfer to go through. He's been worth the wait in gold. I thought at the end of the game, I said to Vik on the way back home, I said, I think he just wants to one more stat or one more save. That's why he gave the ball away. But I think he's not just that, like you said, that shot stopper, because I mean Carson was always known as the one of our best shot stoppers at the club, and I think we're going to have another one in Zetterstrom. But I think it's not just that; it's his presence from corners. He comes and punches, but he doesn't just do it for the sake of it. He comes to it and commits, and 9 times out of 10 he's getting there. Yes, his distribution does need work. It does. That is probably his one letdown. But the goal kicks 9 times out of 10 are now sort of getting to their target. And I mean, I've commented numerous times to you boys. I mean, the fact he can hit a ball with 3 steps as far as he does is absolutely insane. And like I said, he is what we need at the back. He's going to be that extra 1 or 2 points a game throughout the season in key games and close games. And I think we're going to have a lot of those. We're going to have a lot of those games where we're going to be behind the ball, and having games like Sheffield where we need to rob a point away from home. And he's going to be key in that.
Please stop calling them Sheffield, man. You're gonna get us killed. Sheffield United, Sheffield playing the 9th tier. They'll get very upset if you call them that.
Chip Butty fans.
Yeah, that's what it is. What I will say, I don't think it's a massive call, but I'm going to put it down now. I think Zetterstrom will be our player of the season. I really do. I think he's already probably nailed on to win it, because every game people are coming away going, God, he's good. So yeah, I have a feeling he's going to win our player of the season. Another player that impressed, before we get on to some more of Derby's lovely struggles on Saturday, Vik, another player that impressed me was Callum Elder. Now he went off injured. It didn't look too serious, to be honest, but he did go off injured. It was written down. I think he's looked really good this season, and I thought he had a great game yesterday. There were a couple of times where Raksaki ran at him, and Elder won that battle. I'd probably say almost every time, maybe 9 times out of 10. He'd come away with the ball, or he'd put the ball out for a throw-in or a corner, and I think it's so important, isn't it? We know how good Ryan Nyambe is. We've known how good Ryan Nyambe is for a while, but it's so important that on both sides we've got players that we can rely on.
Yeah, definitely. And with Elder, he's just really grown in confidence, in the sense that if we look at last season, a lot of people ripped him off, and this year was like a clean slate for him. He's come into the side and he's looked fantastic. I mean, I don't think he's put a foot wrong. Again, it probably does help that Nyambe on the other side can be a bit more of a safety net, especially when it allows Elder to go forward. But he hasn't put a foot wrong. He's looked brilliant. I did worry at the start of the season, just purely because I didn't think we had anybody in backup. I know Fozzie can play there. Can Fozzie play 3 games a week? Probably not at this age, but
yeah.
He can do a job. But yeah, no, Elder's been really impressive, and I think it is probably due to the fact that there's a step up in quality as well. I think at League One level, you sort of know what your wingers are like. They're just going to smash into you, and he'd probably struggle with the physicality of it all and all that. But at Championship level, he's been proven it. He's played for Hull City in this division. And yeah, he looked really well. I really hope that injury isn't serious, because I've been a bit worried if Fozzie does have to play there 2-3 games a week. But no, I can't take away from the lad. He's been brilliant. Yesterday was another prime example of how good Elder can be.
Yeah, it certainly was, and let's hope this injury isn't serious. Although, like you say, we've got Craig Forsyth obviously to come back as well. We've got a long week before we play again, so we've got a little bit of time to get ready, get something prepared. Although I think if Elder is out, that's the start of an injury crisis for me, because all of a sudden we're missing 4 or 5 first team players for probably what won't be the first time this season with some of the battling we've done already. But one thing we need to mention, Cal, is Derby's sort of pretty shocking attack. If we look at it, I mean, Mendes-Lang, I thought was Derby's only threat all game. His shot from 25 yards, smashing off the post, I thought it got in from where I was. It was some strike, but he was pretty much our only threat all game. Jerry Yates had the fewest touches for the second game in a row of any outfield player. Just couldn't get the ball to him. I thought Caden Jackson was completely nullified. I can't remember him actually touching the ball in their half. And I mean, that's summed up by Derby's XG, which I know doesn't mean everything, but 0.05 XG, which is basically zero. And 0.02 of that was Mendes-Lang's shot from 25 yards. So Derby didn't really create a lot. We didn't really get into the right areas. I think the second half probably plays a big part in that, because in the second half, we, barely got out of our own half. But Callum, that's something we've got to work on, isn't it? Away from home is doing something and creating something against those teams that are better than us. As it says here, every team that's beaten us so far is currently above us in the league. We are 9th in the league. But yeah, every other team's above us that has beaten us, which is probably a sign of why we've struggled to score goals on the road so far. But it is a worry, isn't it, that we're not really creating too much in front of goal. I mean, even at home, our XG, which again doesn't mean anything, but we've not created a lot and we're not making a lot of chances. Is it something that Derby need to work on? Because underlying metrics like that do play a part, and sooner or later we won't score these great goals that we've scored over the last few weeks.
I think it's one to monitor. I'm not pushing the panic button as of yet, but it is one to monitor. I think you're right. I think that away from home, we have played some very decent teams this season who are going to be up there. I think we've also got one coming up in Sunderland, so it's not going to get any easier. But I think when you look at the way we play away from home, we're very much backs against the wall and try and counter attack with pace. And the only thing that I'm seeing, I said to both you boys after the game, is that Yates is too isolated on his own. The front three need to be narrower away from home if they're going to play like they are, because it just means that Yates can then do the combination passes that he likes to do and play those through balls through. And we nearly got one through to Caden Jackson at one point, but it just got intercepted. But that's what we need to do more than ever, because I think what we're trying to do is use him as a target man, and unfortunately when he's going up against a 6'7" beast at the back for Sheffield United, he's going to struggle, and that's not the game he plays, and we need to play to his strengths. And when we have done, we've seen what he can do. So we just need to replicate what we've been seeing at home more often than we have away. And it's like I said, it's not broken. We have shown that we can do it. We just need to be doing it away from home. And I think it's just one to monitor. Like I said, it's not a panic button yet, but it is definitely one to monitor.
Well, I think, Vic, something that we saw when Marcus Harness came on was we actually managed to retain the ball further forward a little bit more. I think part of Derby's problem is we don't, especially away from home. I think at home we have started to do this a bit more, but away from home, we don't really commit anybody's forward, even the likes of Kenzo Halmine. His role is to sort of link the defence, the midfield and the attack. But when it comes to going forwards, it's pretty much Yates, Jackson and Mendes-Lang. And when you look at that front three, I think Jerry Yates has got a great touch on him, but he's usually being marked by two players. Mendes-Lang's the one who's been the most dangerous, I'd say, but we play him on the left where he's less dangerous. Which still confuses me. And Caden Jackson is a brilliant worker. He works really, really hard and he gets up and down. You can see why he's playing, because there's times when he tracks back and he wins tackles that maybe most wingers wouldn't. But on the other side of it, I think he's probably our worst attacker that plays week in, week out on the ball. I think he's not fantastic at retaining the ball and keeping the ball, especially in tight areas. And when we're playing away from home, we need to hold that ball up a little bit more. We need to keep the ball a little bit further forward. And I think we really struggled to do that. And it wasn't until Harness came on that we really started to do that again and actually hold the ball a little bit further forward, because we had someone that had that footwork, had that ability on the ball further forward. So what do you reckon, Vic? What's the cause of Derby's sort of poor attacking play, and is there a way that we can use the players that we've got currently to, I guess, turn it on a little bit away from home?
I think in particular with yesterday, I think you're looking at players that are injured, and you look immediately, David Ozil sort of screams out, we missed him in the middle of the park yesterday. Someone that can battle, someone that can just sort of break up play, be a bit more physical, allow the other two midfielders to push on. When Harness come on, we looked a bit better. Of course, we didn't really create many chances, but like you said, in the midfield, we sort of got a bit more control. He got the ball down, he started spraying it a little bit. And that's what Harness can do. I mean, we saw him play at left wing at Pride Park last week, and I didn't think he had a great impact. But yesterday, he come on and he showed what he could do with that number 10 role. So again, it's an option there. I think it just depends on how interchangeable that midfield three is as well. I think if we can, I know Ibu Adams this season in particular has looked like he's going to bomb forward a lot more. Last season, he looked like he was that player that Ozil is now, which is sort of breaking up playing. Maybe it's easier to do at League One compared to Championship level. It literally just depends on how interchangeable that midfield three can be. And then when you look at the front three as well, Yates you feel sorry for because, like you said, he's being marked by two centre backs. Again, I could be hinting at maybe a system change here. We could be looking at maybe not this side of the international break, but after that we could be looking at maybe a back three, maybe a 3-5-2. I thought when Brown come on, he looked lively. Didn't really get involved as much as we wanted to. But he looked lively. He looked lively for me.
He touched the ball.
Didn't have to touch a ball. Sometimes it's just literally being busy. That's all we had to do. I mean, I think he closed down one of the players, and we could have been on the attack, but I think we fluffed our lines again there. But it literally depends on what sort of system we play now with the squad that we do have. I think there's quite a few injuries at the minute, and unfortunately in midfield, when someone like Ozil is gone, you can really notice it because of how well he's been playing. So yeah, we'll see what happens. I think we've played some tough teams away from home. I think we've got to remember that as well. At home, played Middlesbrough, who might be up there this season. Cardiff, not that great, and then obviously we smashed Bristol City. So away from home, if we can find a way to just be a bit more brave, find a way for that midfield three to click, and then hopefully, like Callum said earlier, get the players a bit more narrower, closer to Yates, so we can play those 1-2s, spin them off, and run through on goal. If we can sort of just work on that sort of play away from home, I think we'll be okay. But the sooner we get something away from home, the better. If it's a point or three, hopefully we can get it soon.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it probably doesn't help. We took out our 6'5" midfielder and replaced him with another Hobbit. So we've got two Hobbits in the centre of midfield, and I think it showed at times, didn't it? We just didn't have the same physicality. And there, Vinicius Souza, who's a massive bloke, and he was winning every battle. And yeah, I think we just lost a little bit, but I think it showed a little bit of desperation when we brought Joe Ward on in midfield towards the end. We are lacking in numbers there. I know there was a strange suggestion of Marcus Harness in holding midfield recently as well. So there's clearly a lot. There's clearly a lot to think about for Warren with the players that we've got available and who can fill in where. And I'm sure he'll solve it. We looked a lot better in midfield straight away, I thought, against Sheffield United, because when Osborne came on against Cardiff, I thought we lost the game completely. So yeah, it's good that we're seeing that progress at least. And we have to mention as well the atmosphere, which was really strange because I've always thought Sheffield United's had a good atmosphere. And one of my best mates is a Sheffield United fan. And when you see him in the Premier League, it was always good, but it was really quiet. I was actually quite surprised how quiet it was. It wasn't even when they scored. After that, it still wasn't very loud. And it wasn't until probably the last 5 minutes where we were making every mistake possible and they were running through every 5 seconds that they started to make a bit of noise. And it's a bit weird, isn't it, Cal? It reminded me a little bit of when we went down to League One, where you kind of expect to win most games and you don't really get as up for it. You know, they're playing against basically a newly promoted team that's cost about 3 million overall to spend, and on paper they should batter us about 8-0. It was a bit strange, wasn't it? It was strangely quiet for a game that was probably quite important for their season.
Yeah, I mean, you could be right in terms of the expectation of the fan base, because I mean, Wilder mentioned in his post-match that before the game on his walk, he was told that, oh yeah, we're going to win 2-3-0, nice and easy, and he was like, no, this is going to be. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be a difficult watch, and it's going to be cagey. And that's what it was at the end of the day. It was a set piece that wins the game. It was not a pretty game to watch, which might have contributed to maybe the atmosphere, because I mean that they weren't great in terms of the way they played as well as us. It was very, very. It did remind me of a League One game in terms of just how cagey it was. Ball being turned over constantly. I think the ball was out of play more than it was in play, to be honest, for like throw-ins and corners and stuff like that. So, and obviously both teams were taking their time in getting the ball back in when they needed to, them at the end of the game or throughout the game. So, I mean, yeah, it did surprise me. We nattered about it after the game. Sheffield United's renowned for the atmosphere and the team getting behind and the chant at the start of the game and stuff like that. And it was just a bit flat. And I think even the away end was a bit flat. I think everyone was just kind of a bit, as you say, just watching a game go by and stuff like that. So it's one to watch. I'd be interested to see what other teams think about it when they go there.
And as well, that concourse, oh my God. I thought I was going to die trying to get to one of the lads with us was trying to get to gate G. The poor bloke had to wade through about 1,000 Derby fans to get there. It was very tight. It's an old ground, isn't it? That's part of the fun of going to an old ground, but oh my God.
I was just glad that Vic managed to get there when we parted ways. I was just like, Vic, text me when you get there. Let me know you're safe.
To be fair, I was quite lucky. I had that guy. There's a guy with another guy on his shoulders who's just like a baby. So I was just trying to follow him, and he managed to clear a route through. I was like buzzing, got through to my seat.
It's kind of weird because like everyone around us, we were by I think gate C in the end, and everyone around us was like, there were people on the steps everywhere. It was like it was full, like the fullest I've probably. It felt like Lincoln Away last year. I don't know if either of you went to that in the end.
Yeah.
Were you there? Yeah, Lincoln Away last year was crazy. There were just so many people in not a lot of space. But no, it's a good away end, isn't it? It's always good to go to those sorts of old grounds, rather than the likes of MK Dons where it's a little bit soulless. But I mean, what we have to talk about, I guess, before we go on to Norwich, I think we have to mention the fact that when we did go a goal down, I think for the first time this season, we didn't really show that fight that we've shown in other games. You know how, like in the Blackburn game, we really fought our way back into it. And I know the result was poor, but we managed to get that equalising goal. We had that moment with the fans celebrating. I think, Vic, was it more of a we don't have the quality to break these down, tired legs after chasing the ball for the majority of the game, or was it something else? It did seem a little bit weird, didn't it, that unlike other games, we just couldn't get back into it.
I think it's a culmination of a load of different things. I think there's tired legs out there. In my opinion, I think we gave him too much respect, which is why I was fuming at the full-time whistle, because I thought for what we thought a Chris Wilder team does, I don't think that's not a recognisable Chris Wilder side, in my opinion. Not the side that they used to be, where they play that back three and they would literally attack after attack. I think we were just very cautious of the fact that the quality they had in the middle of the park and up front as well. And I think it was a case of not conceding 3, 4, 5, and just trying to be as tight as possible and trying to keep the scores down. If we could just maybe nick an equaliser or a winner if it was still at 0-0. But for me, I just think we gave Sheffield United too much respect. They're not the side that they used to be. They've got quality players, and I think this is why when we're talking about the atmosphere as well, I think even their fans are seeing that this isn't the Sheffield United of old, where they were just attacking, they were scoring 5-6 goals every game, and they were literally picking teams off in the Championship. This is a very reserved side, and I think because of the way they got relegated last year, play the way they do now, and it's pretty similar to the way we play, in my opinion. I think they just sit back, let them soak up the pressure and hit on the counter, and I think that's probably why the atmosphere was flat. But yeah, I just think we gave them too much respect. I think at Blackburn we gave it a go because we didn't know what we were going into. It was an unknown entity. Whereas Sheffield United, we know that on paper at least that the squad has got Premier League standard players. So give them too much respect, but hopefully that will change. And if we just, like I said earlier on in the pod, if we're a bit more brave, a bit more adventurous, we might see different results with this Derby side. And there's no reason why we can't go out and beat teams like this, because we've shown that we can compete at this level. We've shown we can score goals at this level. And it just depends on what the players want to do on the day. If we play with no fear, we'll get the results.
Absolutely. And yeah, I mean, the different result could be a 6-0 defeat rather than a 1-0 defeat. We're yet to see. I'm sure we will at some point. But let's look ahead to Norwich. Now, they beat Watford 4-1. I think they've had a fairly decent start so far. It's not going to be easy. It's really not going to be easy. But then we're probably going to say that every week. So Carl, it's a big one, isn't it, for us? And we've suddenly got a bit of a conundrum. We've mentioned already, does Nat Phillips come in? Do we make sure that we're a little bit more solid against players that have Premier League experience? They've got the likes of Sargent up top that have played at a good level before. And also as well, how do we set up in midfield? Do we keep the same three that we've got before? Do we just stick with one up front? Do we go to a 3-5-2? There's a lot of questions for Paul Warne, isn't there? I mean, if Elder's injured, who comes in for him? What way do you think we'll set up against Norwich, who are probably going to be the best team to come to Pride Park so far this season?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, they've just come off the back of winning 4-1 against Watford, who were very difficult in themselves when we went there. And I think it's going to, like you say, going to be a very, very difficult game at Pride Park. I think we're going to not see probably the Bristol City game more than likely the Middlesbrough game, where we're going to be sat there and hoping for mistakes and trying to counter attack. It's going to be an away performance at home, in my opinion. I do like what they're doing. Yes, they're in and around ourselves within the table, but there's 4
they're below us. Rubbish.
Well, on goal difference, I think
1 point.
1
point ahead of them.
So I think at the end of the day, we're going to have to be resolute, and that's what's going to make it interesting for me when it comes to the formation and the way we set up. Are we going to see a similar formation to what we saw against Sheffield United, or are we going to come and see that 3 at the back and then, as I say, counter attack and see Phillips come in and bring assurance to the 2 central defenders after yesterday? I think Norwich are going to dictate the ball. We're going to see that. So I think any fans going to Pride Park don't expect to see the ball very much. We're going to see probably 20% possession and hope for a mistake and maybe a halfway line goal like we saw against Middlesbrough.
I mean, I don't know if it would be like that, Vic. I don't think it'll be that negative. I mean, I'm just looking at the table here. Obviously, it doesn't tell us everything, but I've probably seen the highlights of every Norwich game this season. They've won 2, drawn 2, lost 2. We've won 3, lost 3. We've both got exactly the same goal difference. We've both scored the same amount of goals, both conceded the same amount of goals. Although 4 of their goals scored were in one game and 4 of our goals conceded were in one game. So, you'll have to think about that. But I think it'll be a really tough game. I do think they're the best team that have come to Pride Park this season, as I said already. But at the same time, I think we've got more than enough to give them a real game.
I think when I've looked at the Norwich side this season, it's a very young squad, which for them is quite exciting. I think they've got a lot of young players that are, well, for one, unproven, but there's no fear in that side. And I think with us, it's going to come down to youth versus experience. I think if we can use our experience in the right way on the day, I think we can get a result against them. At Pride Park, I fancy us to take on anyone, just purely because we've created a fortress out of Pride Park on the back end of last season and this season. I mean, it's no mean feat that we've got 9 home wins in a row. It's been the best record since the 70s. So at Pride Park, I'm pretty confident that we could take on anybody. And looking at Norwich specifically, like I said, they've got a young side. They've got players like Josh Sargent, who, in my opinion, I think is going to be like Kiefer Moore yesterday was the blueprint for how you bully our centre backs. If Josh watches any highlights from that game, he'll probably figure out how to take on our centre backs. But like I said, at Pride Park, we are generally tend to be better. We're a bit more on the front foot this season. I've noticed we sort of take the game to teams this year, especially like teams like Norwich, and I think it'll make for an exciting game. It will be tough. They've got some quality players in their side, but I think we'll be fine. I think if we can just get our head screwed on, focus on what we need to do, go and get a goal, but not sit back. For me, if we get a goal and sit back, that's where we're going to see the detriment of this side. If we get a goal and keep going, keep pressing, even if we don't get it, the fact that we're still doing attack after attack will help us in the long run. So it'll be a tough game, but I'm pretty confident we'll match them, and hopefully we can get 3 points next week.
Let's hope so. I mean, looking at Norwich's away record, they lost on the opening day to Oxford, obviously another promoted side. They've only scored 1 goal away from home all season so far, which was in a 1-0 win against Coventry, which is their only points of the season away from home so far as well. At the Rico, Coventry have had a bit of a strange start, haven't they? I think they probably thought they'd be better than where they are. But yeah, it's going to be a tough game, but we've got great home form. They've not got great away form. Let's hope we can keep doing what we're doing, keep pushing on, and use sort of the first half at Sheffield United and the previous home games where we've won all of them to give us a little bit of momentum going into this and a little bit of belief. So I want score predictions, goal scorers. If you've got any in the comments as well, then please let us know. Cal, what do you reckon, pal?
Well, you and Vic have convinced me with those stats after my monologue, so I'll go a 1-0 win. I think it will be cagey. I think the thing that we're going to do is we're going to try and bully them with Ibu Adams in that midfield. So I will go a goal to Yates. Let's get Yates his first goal. I think he's deserved it.
Possession stats.
Oh God, 72% to Norwich.
72%, right? We'll remember that one. Vic, what do you reckon, pal?
I'm going to go for a classic goal, Langer 2-1 win. I just think that we'll get a goal early on. They'll equalise and we'll get a winner in the 75th minute. And I think Yates is finally going to open his scoring. People are going to think I'm match fixing at this point, so I'm naming exact minutes here, but you never know. Yeah, I think Yates is going to open his scoring, and I think the opener will probably come from Halman again.
Yeah, let's hope Kenzo Halman can get on the score sheet for the third home game in a row. We've got a few in the chat. Cole Palmer, can't believe he's here, has said, let's get a win versus Norwich. Peter Kerr says 2-0 Derby. Jim says it's going to be Derby 3, Norwich 2 with Jackson, Yates and Adams on the score sheet. And I think, I hope we'll win. I have a feeling we're going to draw. I have a feeling it's the first time we're not going to win at home this season, mainly because we just have a habit of doing this. We can't play too well for too long. I think we'll draw 1-1. I think my brain's being a bit negative. I think the goal scorer for us in the 11th minute will be Nathaniel Mendes-Lang with his first of the season. And then in the 64th minute, they're going to equalise, and it'll be a bore draw at Pride Park. But hopefully we can get ourselves a win. I mean every win at home's massive, isn't it, for us now with the position we're in? We're about 31 points from safety. Let's keep using these home games to get ourselves in a position where we're not thinking about how many points we need to get towards the end of the season. So thank you very much for joining us. If you did enjoy, please do leave a like. Please do subscribe. Please do give us a rating, especially as it's 5 stars. I'd be very pleased about that if you do. If you didn't enjoy, please don't rate us because we'll get upset if you give us a 1 star. Rams, let's go. We're going up. It makes me laugh every time we sing about how we're going up. The Doctor's 21 points. I think there's about 15 different versions being sung in a minute. But Cal, thank you very much for joining us. Vic, thank you very much for joining us. It's goodbye from me.
Goodbye from me.
And goodbye from me.
Thank you very much. If you want to support us in our running, the link is in the bio. Please do donate. My legs are dying. We'll see you soon. Up the Rams. 3 more points. Come on. Bye.